So recently I volunteered to create all the sound for an online card game, and this is a documentation of my process. First, I needed to make some general card sounds like drawing, selecting, and playing. Using a combination of a real pack of cards, a menu from a takeaway, and my hands, I recorded a suite of sounds that I could manipulate to fit the functions I needed. After some transient shaping, compression, and EQ, here are the card draw sounds I ended up making. I wanted to make a variety so that the player doesn't hear the same sound every time they draw a card. So next I wanted to start working on the sounds for the Cosmic Horror faction. I plan on using mostly my own recorded sounds for this project, but with creatures like these, I find it hard to work with just my voice, so I used a lot of animal library sounds for this faction. The first sound I made for playing the card consisted of a main screech layer with some automated tremolo, chorus, and a comb filter at 50% mix, along with track spacer just affecting the highs to make room for the wet, squelchy layer. The wet layer I just mentioned is one I recorded using a wet towel, and it's there to make the sound slightly uncomfortable to listen to, like this creature is unsettling just to be around, which I think fits with the Lovecraftian theme of the cards in this faction. Another subtle layer is this kind of creaky groan I used with a tremolo on to make it less constant and less human sounding, mostly just filling in the frequencies and the tail end of the sound. Lastly, there's this pitched down hyena, which adds some menacing lows and adds some size and really makes it feel like a predator. On all the Cosmic Horror sounds I have a rack I made with some EQ cutting the very bottom end, a lot of compression, some reverb to give it more scale, a bit of distortion, some more distortion but only on the highs above 1.6 kHz, and a final EQ to boost the lows and highs, and then a limiter to make sure it doesn't get too loud. Here's how the final result sounds without the rack. And here it is with the rack. So after some feedback from the game designer, he said to dial back the sound a bit because it was too long and could cause ear fatigue when the player hears it all the time. So I took all the elements except the low hyena growl, pitched it up 3 semitones and cut down the tail. Bringing back the hyena growl but pitching it up 6 semitones and layering it under the sound to make it fit more with the other elements. It's a subtle change, but I think the new result is less likely to cause ear fatigue in the player. Onto the attack sound, I used a variation of the main screech from the same library, with a similar EQ and tremolo effect, along with another wet squelch, and a recording I made a while ago of just hitting a metal pole as the main impact, with a reverse tail of another impact I made rising into it. Put the same effect rack on the end, but with less distortion and reverb and more boost to the high end, and here's the final result. Onto the death sound for the Cosmic Horror faction, I used a pitched up recording of myself breathing and vocoded it to a wet sounding snake breath to make it sound less human and more unnatural, boosting the highs to really accent that squelch. I'm also playing that snake breath at the same time as a mids layer, taking out the highs to remove background noise. Finally, the same hyena growl, but more pitched up and lower in the mix, just to make sure it's obvious that this is the same creature from the other sounds. Put the same effect rack on the end, but turn up the reverb mix and reduce the distortion, and here's the final result. So that's it for the first episode of Sound Design Devlog. Next time I'll be looking at some UI sounds and neutral card sounds. Thanks for watching.